The sky over Nevada was painted in strokes of gold and blue that morning, the desert sun rising behind the jagged mountains like fire spilling over the horizon. Inside a commercial Boeing 737, Captain Aaron Whitlock gripped the yoke tighter than usual. His uniform was pressed, his voice calm, and his eyes focused, but behind that calm exterior was a storm no one could see. To the passengers, he was just a commercial pilot flying from Denver to San Diego. To the world, he was just another man in a crisp uniform. But to a handful of people in a distant air base, one name would soon shake the airwaves, a name they thought had been buried years ago: Ghost Rider. Before we go any further, if you believe in second chances, in kindness that changes lives, then take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal, because this one is about redemption, sacrifice, and the power of a father's love that refused to die. Aaron had once been one of the most respected Air Force pilots in the country, a man whose call sign Ghost Rider echoed through mission briefings with quiet reverence. He was the kind of pilot who could dance with death in the skies and come out smiling. But life has a way of humbling even the best. In 2012, during a classified operation overseas, an order went wrong. A miscommunication led to tragedy, one that cost innocent lives. Though the investigation later cleared him of wrongdoing, Aaron's conscience never did. He resigned, vanished from the Air Force, and reappeared years later as just another pilot wearing a commercial airline badge. He traded combat missions for flight schedules and war zones for terminal gates. At home, the house was quiet except for the laughter of a 7-year-old girl, his daughter, Isla. She had his blue eyes and her late mother's smile. Every morning, before heading to the airport, Aaron would braid her hair, make her pancakes shaped like airplanes, and leave sticky notes in her lunchbox that said things like, "You're my favorite co-pilot." She was the reason he kept breathing. After his wife's death during childbirth, Isla became his anchor in a life that often felt adrift. He never told her about Ghost Rider. To her, he was just Daddy, the man who flew big planes and came home smelling like coffee and jet fuel. But on that particular day, fate had other plans. At 32,000 feet, the flight was smooth until the cockpit warning light blinked amber cabin depressurization risk. It was a malfunction that could be corrected quickly, and Aaron handled it with precision, his voice even professional. He didn't panic. He never did. But what came next wasn't something any commercial pilot trained for. The onboard radar lit up with military aircraft signatures, 2 F-22 Raptors on an intercept course. Air traffic control scrambled, issuing new frequencies and requests for identification. Passengers were oblivious, sipping coffee, while Aaron's co-pilot, a rookie named Ben, stammered at the sight of fighter jets approaching fast. The radio crackled with a crisp military voice. "Unidentified aircraft, this is Falcon 1 of the U.S. Air Force. You are entering restricted airspace. Identify yourself immediately." Ben froze. Aaron leaned forward, pressed the transmit button, and in a tone colder than steel said, "This is Ghost Rider requesting vector confirmation." There was silence, absolute silence on all frequencies. Then another voice came through, lower, filled with disbelief. "Say again, call sign." Aaron exhaled slowly. "Ghost Rider, copy." The cockpit went dead quiet. Even the hum of the engines seemed to fade. Across the secure military channels, disbelief rippled like thunder. The legend, the pilot who had disappeared, was now speaking from a commercial cockpit. And the men in the Raptors, they had grown up hearing stories about him. One of them, Captain Miles Trent, had a photograph in his locker of Ghost Rider standing beside an F-15, back when he was a child watching his father serve under that same man. Now he was intercepting him in the air. Aaron didn't know it yet, but he had just changed the course of his life again. Down below, the restricted airspace issue was being handled. A software glitch had misrouted his civilian flight path. But in that short span of confusion, a dozen military control rooms came alive. They traced the voiceprint, verified it twice. It's him. One technician whispered, "It's Ghost Rider." That evening, after landing safely, Aaron walked through the terminal like any other pilot. He smiled at passengers, thanked the crew, and went home to Isla. But as he tucked her in, his phone buzzed with a restricted number. He didn't want to answer, but something told him to. Aaron Whitlock. The voice said, "This is Colonel James Cutter, U.S. Air Force Command. We need to talk." Aaron's heart sank. "That name doesn't exist anymore," he said quietly. The colonel's voice softened. "Maybe, but Ghost Rider just saved 142 lives up there today. We'd like to know how." It turned out that while Aaron's flight computer had glitched, his quick manual recalibration done from muscle memory had prevented a catastrophic descent. The data showed he performed a maneuver that wasn't even taught in commercial aviation. It was something only a few Air Force pilots knew how to execute. Cutter wanted him back not as a fighter pilot, but as a mentor for a new program training young pilots to handle crisis situations in civil aviation. Aaron hesitated. Returning meant facing the ghosts of his past, the ones he had buried with his Air Force uniform. But when Isla found him staring at the old photo of his squadron that night, she said softly, "Daddy, were you a hero once?" He looked at her for a long time before whispering, "I tried to be." The next morning he drove to Nellie's Air Force Base, the desert wind tugging at the edges of his resolve. The hangars stood like sleeping giants, and when he walked in, silence fell. Men who had only heard stories about Ghost Rider stood up straighter. Cutter met him halfway, offering a firm handshake. "Welcome back, sir," he said. Over the next months, Aaron trained pilots not in combat, but in control, teaching them that precision and calm could save lives in any sky. Among them was Captain Miles Trent, the young F-22 pilot who had intercepted him. The two developed an unspoken bond, respect born of shared skies and quiet admiration. But life, as always, had one more test to give. 6 months later, a freak weather system crippled the power grid in the western states. Communication towers went down, radar systems flickered, and chaos spread through the skies. Aaron was aboard a small private training jet with a new recruit, guiding him through instrument failure drills when the real storm hit. Lightning cracked through the clouds, and their systems went blind. Ground control couldn't reach them. The recruit panicked, shouting through static, but Aaron stayed calm, his voice steady. "Fly by feel, trust your instincts," he said. Meanwhile, in the control tower, Miles recognized the last radio ping. "It's him," he whispered. "Ghost Riders in the storm." He and 2 other pilots scrambled into their F-22s, slicing through the chaos to reach him. For 2 hours, the storm raged. The world below didn't know that one man was out there keeping his student alive while risking his own life. When the fuel warning light blinked red, Aaron made a choice. He guided the rookie toward an airstrip's faint lights and stayed behind, circling just long enough to ensure his student made it down safely. The last radar contact showed a blip disappearing behind thunderclouds. Rescue teams found the wreckage miles away. The plane was destroyed, but somehow, impossibly, Aaron was alive, battered, bleeding, but alive. When asked later why he stayed up there, he said, "Because someone once stayed up there for me." That night, as he lay in the hospital, Isla climbed onto his bed, clutching his hand. "You are a hero, Daddy," she whispered. And for the first time in years, Aaron believed it. The Air Force reinstated his service record with honor, marking his name not under combat achievements, but under service to humanity. He never returned to combat again. He didn't need to. His new mission was bigger than war. It was hope. So when people hear about the day F-22 pilots heard the name Ghost Rider on a civilian frequency, they remember it not as a mystery, but as a story of redemption, a reminder that some legends don't die, they just change their wings. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal. Your support helps us share more real stories of courage, love, and second chances. And before we end, take a moment to comment below. What does redemption mean to you? Because somewhere out there, another Ghost Rider is waiting for a reason to believe again.